What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, Under Center with Abelson, presented by the Real Spiel podcast. We are back with another picks and previews. Crazy to think, man, this is the second to last picks and previews of the regular season. We got this weekend, then we got rivalry weekend, then we got championship weekend, and then we got a long ass unnecessary break, and then we got college football playoffs. Why championship weekend is on December 6th, and then the first college football playoff game is on December 19th. Like, that just feels like an unnecessary amount of time. I give the guys rest, whatever. A week should be plenty. We're in the middle of the season. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you doing? I think 1 week off should be fine, but 2 whole weeks, that's a lot, man. That's a lot. But nonetheless, we got two more chances to get our record over 500. Because during the playoffs and the championship weekend, I'm still going to be making picks, but I'm probably not going to count those against the spread. So we got 2 more opportunities, man. 2 more opportunities to change things around. We're barely under 500. We went 2-3 last weekend, so we're sitting right at 32-38. So again, we got 2 more opportunities. We're going to be picking a decent amount of games this weekend. So we got 2 more opportunities to turn things around. So with that being said, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, we're here a couple times a week talking all things college football. Let's get into it. Let's start out with the college game day game of the week. USC versus Oregon. We got old Pac-12 foes going at it. Man, I miss the Pac-12 so much. So much. Nonetheless, this is officially a Big Ten game now. Again, College Game Day is going out there. I saw some people were a little upset that College Game Day is going back to Oregon for the second time. You guys can't have it all, man. You guys can't have it all. I know people are saying, oh, go to JMU, go to some of these other schools. We got 3 weeks in a row of not going to a Big Ten or an SEC school. I thought that was more than we'd ever get. So for them to go back to Oregon when it's this massive of a game, I have absolutely no problem with. This essentially is a play-in playoff game, man. It literally feels like the loser of this game, USC will definitely not make the playoffs, and Oregon will. It seems like Oregon will be on the outside looking in if they do not win this game. Right now, they are sitting at the 7th slot, man. I talked about this in my college football playoff reaction video. It was the video before this, so go watch that if you haven't. But I talked about how Oregon right now they are sitting at 7 in the country. We just saw a team in Alabama who has a way better resume than Oregon drop 6 spots after losing to a team ranked below them at home. Alabama lost to Oklahoma. Oklahoma was ranked below them, and Alabama was at home. They dropped from 4 to 10. We dropped 6 spots, and it was a 2-point game. They lost by 2 points. It was a very close competitive game. Oregon, they're at home. They're playing a team that's ranked below them at 15 in USC. And Oregon does not have as great of a resume as Alabama did. Alabama has top quality wins. Oregon's best win as right now is Iowa. And that's really it. So if Oregon loses this game, man, there's a chance they could slide, man. If they fall 4 or 5 spots, especially if Alabama and Notre Dame and a couple other teams below them win, they're going to be at like 11, 12, maybe 13. And who's to say they won't even be further than that? BYU only has 1 loss. Miami, they have, I think, better quality wins than Oregon. So if you're Oregon, man, I didn't think a 10-2 team would be left out of the playoffs. But if there is a 10-2 team between the SEC and the Big Ten that's left out, it would probably be Oregon. So this is a huge matchup for them. As far as the game, man, USC, they've quieted some doubts that I've had of them this year. Again, in my recap video of last week after they beat Iowa, I kind of discussed how I'm not the biggest USC guy. Every year they get all this, since Lincoln Riley's been there, they get all this preseason hype. They had a good first year, but since then they always get all this preseason hype, all this preseason buzz, and just always fall short. And I can't stand that people just are all over USC and just give them all this unnecessary attention. I get they're a big brand, but what have they done since Lincoln Riley's first year? they've done nothing. They've done nothing. They've regressed every single year since his first year. But this year, man, they've been quieting some of the doubts I've had of him. Because what's the thing that people always talk about when it comes to USC? They're not a tough team. They're not a physical team. They can't play a Big Ten style of brand. They can't get down and dirty in the trenches. And they've shown a little bit this year that that's a brand they've been able to play, man. That's a brand they've been able to play. They beat Michigan at home. It was at home, but they still beat Michigan. Michigan, when you think of a tough physical Big Ten team, like that's the team you think of. And they ran all over Michigan. Michigan could not stop the run. They got physical with Michigan. They were having essentially their way with Michigan on the offense and the defensive side. And they handled Michigan, man. And then we saw them against Iowa, another team who is that stereotypical Big Ten Midwestern team. Guys on the offensive and the defensive line, tough, physical brand. And it was in the rain in Southern California, of all things. And what did we see? We saw them start slow. They got down early. But if you would have told me that Iowa would have had a multiple score lead over USC, that Iowa was running the ball all over USC, because in the second quarter, USC could not stop the run in the second quarter. If you would have told me all that, I would have probably told you that there's no way Iowa would have blown the lead. No way. But lo and behold, USC's defense, they dialed up the switch, they turned up the knob, and in the second half, they pitched a shutout. They did not give up a single point to Iowa. They turned it up. King Miller started running the ball. They started getting physical, and that passing game is just elite. And they were able to pull it out against Iowa in another tough physical style brand of football. So I've been pretty impressed with USC. I'm not going to buy in. I'm not going to say all my doubts and all my feelings of USC are gone, but they've been impressing me lately. They've been impressing me. But they are playing this Oregon team who I think is a better version of both of those teams. We saw Oregon go into Kinnick Stadium and play and dominate a tough physical style against Iowa. They were able to run, over 200 yards on Iowa's defense. Oregon is a better version of, in my opinion, USC and Iowa. They are well more balanced. We think of Oregon, we think of high-octane offense, passing. And albeit Dante Moore is a good quarterback and they do have weapons, this has been a running team this year. Oregon is averaging over 240 yards per game on the ground. We saw them abuse Iowa on the ground, and this is going to be another game, man. This is a game that, yes, it has the potential to be one of those high-scoring track meets, shootout games. But I don't think that's just the way Oregon is this year, man. They have against lesser opponents, but against talented teams, they're not a team that have just been lighting up the scoreboard. And that's one reason why I've been impressed with Oregon, is because they've shown an ability to play that tough physical brand of football. So I'm going to be very interested to see if USC will be able to stop the run, because Oregon's going to want to run the ball. They got a trio of backs that they constantly rotate. They can all get you yards at any given moment. Whittingham, I think they got the true freshman back there. They can get you yards at any moment. They can go for 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. And if they can get well balanced, if they can run the ball, that's going to open up stuff in the passing game. Sadiq, their tight end, he played his first game last week. He had missed up a couple of games. He was banged up a couple games. Their wide receiver Moore, he's been out for a while. I think he's slated to come back this game as well. So those are two catching threats that are going to only help Oregon. I think Evan Stewart, he hasn't played at all this year, I don't think. I thought he was, because it got announced in the preseason that I thought he was supposed to be done for the year. I don't know. I don't know what his injury was, but I heard some stuff that was saying he could potentially play this week. So that would be another deep threat for Oregon's passing game. So this is do or die time for Lincoln Riley. This is do or die time for USC. And this is a tough opponent, man. Lincoln Riley, he's 0-4 versus top 10 teams since he's been at USC. He's 1-7 on the road versus top 10 teams, or versus just ranked teams in general. And this is one of the toughest places to play, man. Autzen is one of the most underrated stadiums. The fact that Indiana went in there and kind of did what they did to Oregon is honestly shocking. It's truly shocking because Indiana or Oregon does not lose to teams like that in that stadium all too often. So the line on this is pretty big, man. If you would have 9.5, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this game is at Oregon, because if this was at USC or a neutral site, I feel like it would be like maybe Oregon -5.5, -6.5 maybe, but -9.5 is a big number. But I've talked about this earlier in the season when I did a preview on Oregon. A motivated Dan Lanning is a scary Dan Lanning. We've seen multiple games in the past where he has been motivated. People have given him bulletin material. People, other coaches, Dion, Mike Gundy, have fired him up before the game. And what did he do? He just laid it on them. I think this could be one of those scenarios. This could be one of those situations where Oregon's hearing a lot of things. They could be hearing a lot of things. And these coaches and these players, they hear it. They don't act on it. They act like they don't. But, did you see the way how fired up Lincoln Riley was after he secured the win over Iowa last? He was jumping in his coordinator's arms. He was going crazy because he hears the noise. He hears the way people talk about him. And if he says he doesn't, he's lying. So these coaches, they hear the stuff, man. And I think Oregon's getting a little disrespected right now, man. People are saying, oh, if they lose again, they're out of the playoffs. People are saying how they don't have a great resume. They don't have quality wins. So I think they're hearing all that stuff. They're at home. They're starting to get healthy. They're getting their players back. They're playing a team who people may still question their toughness. I think this is a spot where Oregon could turn it around, and at the end of this game, we could be talking about Oregon. Hey, man, this might be a real national championship contender. Why were we sleeping on Oregon? I'm gonna do it. I am not gonna be surprised at all if USC does cover, because I think they do have an amazing passing game. Their passing game has been truly elite. But USC, this is the best, or Oregon, this is the best passing defense that they've played all year. Or granted, this is probably the best passing attack that Oregon's played, but Oregon's the best passing defense that I think USC has seen all year, so I think that may be able to give them some trouble. We saw Maeva throw some interceptions in that Notre Dame game where he just seemed a little rattled. I think the noise and the pressure may get to him, and we're going to take Oregon. We're going to take them to cover the 9.5 spread. Next game we got is Missouri versus Oklahoma. This is another game with this is probably where the spread, I think, would be after one team's coming off a big game, another team, is a little questionable. Right now, Oklahoma is sitting as a 7.5 point favorite at home. I was a little surprised that Missouri got back up into the rankings, man. I was really, really surprised because they got bumped out of the rankings after who they play? After the Texas A&M game, and then they went and absolutely crushed who they play last weekend. They absolutely crushed Mississippi State last weekend, so they jumped back into the rankings. I personally don't really think Missouri should be ranked. I mean, this is a team whose best win is Kansas. They've lost all three of their games. They've lost all three of their big games: Alabama, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. They just don't really have any quality wins. They've beaten Auburn and Mississippi State, but that's a conversation for a different day. But this is going to be an interesting game because they're saying Bo Pribula could come back, possibly, because after he got hurt, it definitely felt like it was a season ender. But shortly after, they never ruled him out for the year, so they're saying there's a chance he could play. I don't know. I'm going to assume Zollers, the backup freshman, is going to play. This is a game that Oklahoma can't look over, man. They can't look over. I know they're coming off a huge win against Alabama on the road, but this is one of those spots where everybody's talking good about you. You jump back into the college football playoffs. Things are going good. You're favored in your last 2 games. Boom. That's where you get clipped, man. That's where you get clipped. I don't necessarily think that's how it's going to happen, but it could, man. It could. So if you're Oklahoma, treat this game like you still are fighting for a playoff spot, because you are. If you lose another game, I'm not gonna say you're not gonna make the playoffs, but it's gonna be it's not in your hands. You control your destiny. You control your destiny right now. If you lose another game, you don't control your destiny. So take care of business. As for the game, this is really a style of a fight of two styles. Missouri, they are a great rushing team. I mean, Ahmad Hardy ran for over 300 yards against Auburn. He ran for, if not 300, he ran for close to 300. I think he broke like a school record against Auburn. And that's the Ahmad Hardy that we saw in those first 5-6 games. Then he kind of tailed off a little bit. That's one of the best running backs in the country. And that's what you need to do when you are starting a young, true freshman quarterback, is rely on the run. Feed the beast. Feed the beast. And that's what they did. And if you're Mizzou, I think you just try and replicate that again. It's going to be tough because Oklahoma, we know the run defense. We know they're stout. This is the 3rd best run defense in the country. We talk about this all the time. We know how Brent Venable, we know he's an elite defensive play caller. And this is an Oklahoma team who's top 20 in the country in pass defense and rush defense. So if that could be a recipe for disaster for Mizzou, because if they're not able to run the ball, and then you mix not being able to run the ball with a young quarterback who things are just moving too quick, who's getting tricked up with disguises and pressure, it could be a scary situation for Missouri. I'm not saying it's going to be, but you got to watch out for that pass defense. We've seen what this Oklahoma defense has been able to do over the last 2 games. In the last 2 games, they've played back-to-back ranked teams on the road, and they have forced 6 turnovers. 6 turnovers in the last 2 games. 3 against Alabama, 3 against Tennessee, and they've scored, I'm pretty sure, on all 6 of those turnovers. I think 2 touchdowns. They scored 2 touchdowns in a field goal last game, and I know they scored at least 1 touchdown in a field goal in the Tennessee game. And this is an offense who really hasn't been needing to do too much lately. It's crazy because in the first halves of the Tennessee and the Alabama game, Oklahoma was getting outgained. Oklahoma didn't even have over, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't even have over 100 yards of offense in the first half of their last 2 games. And they didn't need to. They didn't need to because they were opportunistic. They got turnovers on those offenses, Alabama and Tennessee. And when they turned the ball over and got set up with great position, what'd they do? They capitalized. They scored. So they were on short field. They got the ball quick and they scored. So they really didn't need to do too much on offense. But this is a Missouri defense this Missouri defense is solid, man. It's a solid defensive group. They are good at stopping the run, although Oklahoma hasn't been a great run team this year. This is still a good defense, so I think eventually we're gonna need to see a little more, because turnovers are chance. It's a chance stat. It's a luck stat. You can't control it. A ball could literally bounce one way and go to one team, or the other way and go to the complete opposite team. A fumble. You can't control the way where a fumble bounces, and it's a luck stat. So you can't necessarily rely on turnovers to be your best offense. So if you're Oklahoma, John Mateer, he was looking a lot more comfortable in the Alabama game. We saw a few great passes where sometimes the pocket was collapsing around him. He would step up and just sling a rifle pass 20, 30 yards down the field. We saw him using his legs a little more. So we're going to need to see a little more dynamic ability out of this Oklahoma offense, because as great of the defense they have, when you start getting into the playoffs, you're going to have to be able to score the ball. You can't just rely on your defense. Can Mizzou do what Alabama couldn't? Alabama could not run the ball against this Oklahoma defense. So will Mizzou be able to? I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I think Oklahoma doesn't stop the run, but I think they contain the run. Containing it can be maybe Ahmad Hardy runs for 100 yards instead of 170. Maybe he runs for 100 yards on 30, 100 yards on 35 carries, runs for 3.5 yards per carry. I just think this Oklahoma team is just too good. I think it's going to be too much of a task for this young quarterback to go on the road against this Brent Venables defense. I think Oklahoma gets it done. I do think it could be a low-scoring game, but ultimately I do think Oklahoma gets it done. I'm going to take Oklahoma minus 7.5. Next up, a game that I did not think I was going to be talking about. We got Vanderbilt versus Kentucky. As a Louisville fan, again, I definitely didn't think I was going to be doing a preview on Kentucky at all this year. I thought they'd be probably like 2-7 right now, or 2-8, whatever it is. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm not gonna lie. The way Kentucky's been playing the last couple weeks versus the way Louisville's been playing, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a tad bit nervous for that Kentucky and Louisville game. Louisville has lost all their games at home this year. All their games, or all their Power 4 games at home. I think. Yeah, I think. We've lost to Clemson. No, we've lost 3 of our 4 games at home. Power 4 games at home. Which is crazy, man. Which is crazy. Because we're undefeated on the road. We've gone 3-0 on the road. Haven't lost a single road game, but we've lost 3 games at home. So yeah, I'm a little nervous because I know Kentucky has great defense and our offense has been just completely shit up to this point, up to the last couple weeks. I know Louisville has a good defense, so this is not a Kentucky Louisville preview, so we'll talk about that for another day. But yeah, Kentucky and Vanderbilt, pretty surprised at the way Kentucky's been playing. Just when you thought it was over, just when you thought the writing was on the wall for Mark Stoops to get canned at the end of the season, Kentucky just flips a switch and has found some ways to win some games, man. That Auburn game was, Auburn's Auburn. That's another one that we felt was coming with Hugh Freeze, but for Kentucky to go in there and basically shut out Auburn, that was a little surprising. To just dominate Florida the way they dominated Florida, especially when we saw Florida literally the week before hang tough with Georgia, and then literally the week after hang tough with Ole Miss. Like, maybe that was just a game they were overlooking. I don't know, but for whatever reason, they were able to just completely dominate Florida. This is a Vanderbilt team who it feels like they are on life support in the playoffs, and it's weird because they're a 10-2 SEC team. They had a couple good wins in the moment, but it feels like they need things to happen, man, because they're sitting at 14 right now, and they play Kentucky and then they play Tennessee. Another loss is definitely going to eliminate them. Does the Tennessee win? How much do they move? Like I said this a few weeks ago, man. It's going to be an absolute mess. There's going to be so many 10-2 teams in the mix, 11-1 and 10-2 teams in the mix. That's why I personally don't think a 9-3 team is going to make it, because like right now we got Vanderbilt at 2 losses, Miami at 2 losses, Notre Dame at 2 losses. We got a couple Big 12 teams who only have, or Utah has 2 losses. BYU sitting there with 1 loss. Alabama has 2 losses. It's going to be a mess, man. It's going to be a mess. Oklahoma has 2 losses. Like, there are a bunch of teams with 2 losses right now. Michigan, USC, who have chances to go 10-2. So it's going to be interesting. This is really a must-win for Vanderbilt. They got to win out. They need a little help. And this is a game that you don't want to get caught slipping, man. Kentucky, their defense is always solid with Mark Stoops. Cutter Boley, he seems to be finding a groove. He's been playing pretty well recently. And again, man, it's just crazy because we thought Kentucky was done for, man. And the question that I'm curious about is, are they going to bring Mark Stoops back? Because it felt like after that Tennessee loss, it felt like it was over. It felt like they had just lost to Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. it felt like it was over, man, because it felt like they weren't going to win they were only going to win one more game for the rest of the year, and that game was Tennessee Tech. Then they would have gone 3-9, like. But now it feels like, especially with how big the buyout is and how Kentucky has to pay that buyout to Mark Stoops within 30 days, it really feels like they're probably going to maybe keep him around for one more year, which I don't think is the smartest thing to do. I think it's ran its course, and this is not me being a Louisville fan. This is, trust me, if I'm a Louisville, well, I can't even say if I'm as a Louisville fan because Mark Stoops has had our numbers, but just for the sake of a Kentucky fan, like, it just feels like this has peaked, man. It feels like there's a couple good names out there that you can have a chance at getting. You don't want those good names to go somewhere else. Especially when you know, like, it's eventually it's coming. Like, whether it's this year or next year, it just feels like it's run its course with Mark Stoops. So if you're Kentucky, man, I don't know. But this would be a huge win. I think if they win this one, then he's definitely coming back. If they beat Vanderbilt and Kentucky and they finish 7-5, he is 100% coming back. 100%. But Kentucky Sports Radio, he went on the Andy and Ari podcast a few weeks ago, and he said almost his exact thing. He literally said, this was after, I think, like the South Carolina game, I think. He literally said that Kentucky was going to win. They were going to win a game that they're not supposed to. They were going to win a game they weren't supposed to, because Mark Stoops always does. Ole Miss last year, Louisville the year before. They said they were going to win a game he's not supposed to, but then if he loses to Vanderbilt in Louisville, that it's done. It's done. Well, now he's won 2 games he wasn't supposed to. He won against Auburn and Kentucky, or Auburn and Florida. So does that point still stand? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think Vanderbilt is going to have too much to play for. Diego Pavia is a dog. That Vanderbilt run defense and defense in general, I think, is going to give Cutter Bully some problems. I think they're going to maybe shut down the run a little bit. I think Vanderbilt is a unique offense that just provides a lot of problems for the defense. They run that weird option style offense where the quarterback's getting loose and they do some trickery. So I think if Diego Pavia can, have some success with his arms, I think Vanderbilt's going to win this game. But do I think Kentucky's going to cover? That's the thing. That's so tough, man. That is so tough. I do think Vanderbilt's going to win. But, do I take Kentucky to cover? Is that crazy? It's not crazy. That is not crazy. Kentucky played Texas close. Kentucky, we're going to go out on a limb here. We are going to, as a Louisville fan, I'm going to regret this. We are going to take Kentucky to cover a 9.5 point spread. Again, I started talking a few weeks ago how about, I was a Vandy guy. I was calling them one of the most underrated teams in the country before they played Texas and before they played LSU and Mizzou. But something just felt a little fool's goldish, a little Cinderella feel to Vanderbilt. Something about their season I just fully couldn't buy in, and a little of it made me think, like, hype made me think Vandy is why they were getting so much attention. But I think they win. But I think Kentucky somehow keeps it close. We know Kentucky's a tough team. We know they play a tough style. So I think that's going to be a very low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a dogfight, but I do think Vanderbilt gets it done. But we are going to take Kentucky plus 9.5. Next up, we got Pitt versus Georgia Tech. Huge ACC game. Again, man, it felt like the sky was falling for the ACC a few weeks ago. It really did, and the sky could still be falling a little bit. Chicken Little, shout out to Chicken Little. But it's kind of crazy because the ACC could still. I know I talked about this last week at the last week's college football playoff edition, but as crazy as it is, as chaotic as the ACC has been this year, there is a chance the ACC can get two teams in the college football playoff. Like, it's wild to say, but there is. Because I think Miami has a real chance of getting in as an at-large. They're 4 spots away from 4 or 5 spots away from Notre Dame. And if they get in, they're likely, again, I can't even say this because the ACC has been so chaotic. As it stands right now, they're not getting into the ACC championship game. So if Miami gets in at large and then the ACC championship winner gets in, that'd be insane. That'd be crazy. But this is a huge game to decide that. If Georgia Tech wins, there's no more crazy scenarios. Georgia Tech wins, they are in the ACC championship game. Pitt still has a chance to win the ACC or to play in the ACC championship game. They only have one conference loss. They're tied with Virginia and SMU. I think if Georgia Tech wins, they're in, and if SMU beats or if Louisville beats SMU, I think Virginia is in. So Pitt, man, they're looking to bounce back after probably one of the worst performances of the year against Notre Dame. I know that's a great Notre Dame team, but the offense of Pitt was just an absolute no-show, and it had been an offense who was wheeling and dealing, slicing and dicing last 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, but that's what happens, man. A young quarterback playing a great defense with a great coach. That could be a tough situation, and this could be another one of those tough situations, man. This is a Georgia Tech team who, it's a tough defensive team, man. It's a tough defensive team. Brent Key. As I say that, I'm reminded about how this team almost lost to Boston College, and Boston College had over 400 yards of offense. Boston College scored 33 points. I mean, what? That's just the ACC in a nutshell, man. That is just the ACC in a nutshell. Mason Heinschel, he's looking to have a bounce back game because, again, that was last week against Notre Dame. That was the first time he truly looked like a true freshman, man. It looked like the field was moving too fast. He was throwing pick sixes. He was getting pressure. And the running game wasn't there. So Notre Dame, and again, Notre Dame, up until the second half, they weren't going crazy offensively. But the offensive Pitt wasn't doing anything else either. So, you know what Pat Narduzzi said? He said, only ACC games matter. It doesn't matter if we get blown out by 1,000 to Notre Dame. If we got Pitt, we got Miami. Those are the only games that matter. So I hope that he actually gets his team ready to play this week because, hey, brother, this is a game that matters. But Georgia Tech, man, man. Pitt has a great run offense, a great run defense, I should say. Up until last week, they were the top 3 run defense in the country, but I'm curious to see how they will fare against the quarterback run. Because we know Haynes King, man, he is an absolute dog. His one touchdown prop is minus 700. This is a guy who is constantly running for over 100 yards with his legs. So I'm curious to see how the non-traditional run game of, the Georgia Tech with the quarterback options and the misdirection and the running, I'm curious to see how that fares against Pitt and if they have some trouble with that. I think the spread at this one's sitting at 2.5. I think this is definitely going to be a close game. Because Georgia Tech is at home, though, and because I just think they are the better team, I do think they win. The spread is sitting at minus 2.5 right now. We are going to take Georgia Tech and for them to cover. I think the home field advantage is going to present some problems. I think the defense is going to actually show up. They got Pitt and then they got Georgia. They're going to have to fix their defense because those are two good offenses. But I think Mason Heinschel may have gotten exposed a little bit last week. I think if Brent Q watches the film, I think he's going to be able to see some stuff that he can do to give that young quarterback some problems, to throw off his rhythm, to throw off his timing. I do think Georgia Tech wins, but I'm not confident in this because Georgia Tech, they've been playing with fire, man. They have been playing with fire lately, and this is the fire that could bite you. And with it being the ACC, anything can happen, but we're going to stick with our guns. We're going to trust our gut. We're going to take Georgia Tech in a close game, but in a cover. Georgia Tech -2.5. Next up, we got Tennessee traveling down to Gainesville to try and do something that they haven't done since, 2004? Tennessee has not beaten Florida on the road in damn near 20 years, which is crazy. But yeah, Tennessee's traveling down to Florida. I've thought about this game, and I've thought about my analysis, and I've thought about what could happen. But, for Florida, all this comes down to they are just the most inconsistent team I've seen in so long. How do you tell me this is the same Florida team that beat Texas, that lost to US, but that also lost to USF, that played Georgia and had the lead on Georgia in the fourth quarter, that also got absolutely dominated and blown out by Kentucky, but then followed that up by having a lead on Ole Miss late in the game and winning and losing a close game. There's no way that's the same team. There's literally just no way it's the same team. So, I could, give my analysis and think what I think's going to win the game, but, what Florida am I getting? What Florida am I getting? Because we've seen literally both sides of the coin. Florida that's lost to USF, that got dominated by Kentucky. A Florida that beat Texas, that played Georgia close, that played Ole Miss close. I don't know. Because if we do get the Florida who played Georgia close, who beat Texas, then yes, I understand the 3.5 point spread. Because I said the same thing about the spread in the Georgia Florida game. The spread was 6.5, 7.5? And I was like, whoa, does Vegas know something? Does Vegas know what type of Florida we're going to get this week? And it makes it so hard because, again, if we get the Florida that we've seen against those good teams, then I think Florida, if not win, then could cover. And it's going to be a close game because we literally just saw them take Ole Miss down to the wire last week. We literally saw them take Georgia down to the wire. But then in between those, we saw them just get absolutely blown out. Their quarterback got benched against a bottom feeder in the SEC. I can't rely on Florida showing up. I just can't do it. It's a big game. I get that. They seem to have always shown up for the bigger games this year. And there's that curse, there's that voodoo curse lingering in the air where Tennessee hasn't really been able to win in Gainesville for almost 2 decades. But law of averages says the tide has to turn eventually. I think this is a good Tennessee team, albeit not great. They have lost their 3 biggest games this year. They are a good team. The offense is good, but again, it's not a great team. But with the spread being this close, I think Joey Aguilar, I think Josh Heupel, I think the offense is humming. I just can't trust Florida to put together a full, complete game. Even if it is a close game, I just can't trust them to put it all together for the whole entire game. We've seen DJ Lagway play good at some times, but we've seen more bad from DJ Lagway than good. I think Tennessee will be able to run the ball. I think their defense is going to travel. And just with the spread being this close, if it was maybe 5, 6, 7.5, I'd probably take Florida. But with the spread being at 3.5, I think I'm going to take Tennessee. I think they finally get it done. I think they win in Gainesville for the first time in years. Give me Tennessee -3.5. Last game we're going to touch on, we'll go over real quick, BYU versus Cincinnati. This is really the last big test for BYU. This is another team who there's a path for the Big 12 and BYU to find themselves in the playoff and the Big 12 to get 2 teams in. If BYU wins this game, I think they've I think they've completely locked up a Big 12 spot, Big 12 championship game spot, and then you're 60 minutes away from playing in the playoffs. And if you beat BYU, it's hard to beat a team twice. It's hard to beat a team 2 times in a row. If BYU somehow knocked off Texas Tech, which I don't think they would, because Texas Tech is just a terrible matchup for BYU. But if they did, that would be a situation where BYU could be in the Big 12 in the playoffs, and Texas Tech could also be in the playoffs. But they have one more hurdle to go. They got Cincinnati on the road, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a Cincinnati team who Cincinnati's technically still not out of the Big 12 race either, if I'm not mistaken. I think they do have a chance. Right now they are sitting at 2 conference losses, and they're tied with Arizona State, Houston, and Utah. So this could be an opportunity for them to try and backdoor their way into the Big 12 championship game. But yeah, this is a Cincinnati team who it felt like they had some momentum. It really, really did. And then they got absolutely handled by, who was it? They got absolutely handled by Utah a couple weeks ago. And since then, it just felt like, and then they lost to Arizona as well. So yeah, they had 2 bad losses in a row. And since then, it feels like all the momentum has just kind of gone away. The spread of this one is sitting at 2.5. So in Big 12 fashion, it does feel like any team can beat any team at any given moment. I think BYU, we saw them just completely dominate TCU, who is an offense who can be explosive at times and pretty good, but they just absolutely dominated BYU. I think BYU and Texas Tech have kind of just separated themselves. And it's crazy because there's definitely separation between Texas Tech and BYU, but I think BYU and Utah are a clear number 2 team in that conference. And if you're only giving me 2.5 points, I have no reason to. I just trust BYU. I think they're a tough, physical team. They play a type of football that when they're playing, likewise and inferior talent, I think can travel well. That Texas Tech roster was just, I think, way better than BYU's, and it showed when they played. But I think BYU can out-physical and out-tough the Cincinnati roster. I think the quarterback is a dog. I think this is going to be, a tough game. I think they're going to establish dominance. They're going to run the ball. They're going to open up the passing game. And I do just think they find a way to win this game. Not a way to win this game. I think they have a chance to win this game comfortably, because there's a good question to see, is Cincinnati still mentally locked in? You got absolutely dominated by Utah, and then you lost the game to Arizona, a game that you really shouldn't have lost. You have 2 games left in the season. It kind of feels like your playoff hopes are gone. Has the team mentally checked out? But nonetheless, I do think BYU wins. I think they cover the -2.5 spread. All right, so that is all the picks that we have for this week. Let's just recap. We have Oregon -9.5. We got we got Oregon -9.5. We got Mizzou. Let's backtrack. Oregon -9.5. Oklahoma -7.5. We got Kentucky +9.5. We got Georgia Tech minus, was that 3.5? Georgia Tech and the spread. Georgia Tech minus, where are you? Georgia Tech -2.5 and the spread. And then we got BYU -2.5. We got Tennessee -4 or -3.5. Tennessee -3.5. So those are the picks for the week, and I'm feeling good about this week. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a positive weekend coming. We're going to get back on track. We're going to end the season at 500, and we are going to talk about the playoffs. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you for listening, as always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the weekend of college football. Go make some money, baby.